Hey guys, it's Noah Byer from Byron White Duffer Company, and in this video I'm going to show you guys how I build this workbench using only hand tools. So you can use power tools if you want to, but in my experience you should use hand tools because it's going to be a lot more fun, a lot more peaceful. So I did get the lumber from the lumber company in a pre-sawn state, so it was already cut to, a rough length and rough size, but it needed a lot of work to get it here. So, and all of that work was done with hand tools. So I hope you find the video informative, and I hope you have fun making your own.
First I'm going to side down the board and check for any cupping, any twist, and check the grain direction and look for high spots. Start on any high spots that you can find and bring those down to your low spots to get the board flat. Be careful not to take too much off of one edge because you can take it and the opposite side way out of parallel. Now that I've got the top face flat, I'm going to flatten one edge and get it square to my face. Not my face, but the face. Once I get these two edges straight and square, I'll use those two to reference off of to make my other two remaining edges straight and square, and I will also use them to do any layout I need to do. To give this some additional strength rather than just a butt joint of glue, I'm going to cut two grooves in the middle board, which is this one right here. You can see the groove on the bottom there and the groove layout lines on the top. And then I'm going to cut a groove in the two remaining boards and put a piece of wood in there. You'll see that a little bit later. If you're using a plow plane like I am here, you're going to have a pretty hard time getting it started because you got to make sure that the fence is really up against so that you're tracking straight along your score lines, because otherwise you're going to end up with a groove that's not straight no matter what you do. You got to get it right on the first couple cuts, and then from there it'll track down straight. And I should note as well that with plow planing, you want to start somewhere towards the front end of the board, like I'm doing here, whereas with normal planing, you're going to start at the back end of the board or even off the board, run along the whole length of the board, and then off the front end. Time for the glue up. Make sure you put wax paper down so that the boards that you're gluing don't stick to whatever you're gluing them on. And then I would recommend dry fitting all your clamps and the layout of the boards, which way you're going to flip them and stuff like that, so that you get a good game plan. Once you put that glue down, you're going to have to go really fast. And then I would say probably err on the side of more glue, because you can always clean that up later. Oh, and in this shot you can see how the splines fit in there. Alright, so now you're probably going to spend a ridiculous amount of time getting the bench super flat, and you probably should, but don't worry about getting all the chip out. Chip out is not going to bug you. It's actually probably going to be better for it, because it's going to mean that you have more surface area on the worktop. And they used to take toothed plane blades and tooth up the tabletop so that they could clamp objects to it more rigidly. Gave it more surface area. This tool took me so long to figure out how to get actually sharp, like reliably, and even still I mess it up, but I just tried a bunch of different methods until one stuck. If you try like probably 3 times and you feel like you've gotten it right every single time, then I would just say move on to a different method. But just keep throwing stuff at the wall until it sticks. To drill the holes for the mortise, I'm going to use a brace and bit, but you could use just a cordless drill or whatever you have. I just like using hand tools, so I did for the whole bench. I did stay pretty far away from my lines here, but this is pretty much the first time I've used a brace and bit, so I just wanted to make sure that I didn't cut away into the good material for the workbench top. So just give yourself a little bit of space. You don't need quite as much as I took. To prevent tear out, just keep going until the point starts to come through, and then switch and drill from the other side like I do here. When you're scoring your lines, you want to make your first cut as light of pressure as possible, because the wood grain can actually push it off of the line. So go as light as possible on the first cut, and then go progressively harder. For chiseling out your mortises, you're going to want to start pretty far away from your line to start with the heavy blows, and then as you take lighter blows, you can keep halving the distance. So I started about 1/4 of an inch, and then went to about 1/8, and then to a 1/16, and then to a 32nd, and then went right to my line. But you could probably start at about 1/8 and work down from there. Here I am fixing a mistake because I scored on my lines instead of on the inside of my lines where my actual leg dimension is. So a couple of my mortises are a little bit too long in one direction, but just learn from me and don't do that. Notice that I'm going to stand edge on to the chisel and sight down it from there, and that's because I can tell a lot better if it's going to be perpendicular or if it's coming out of perpendicular. Alright, so there's two reasons you're going to want to flip the bench top. The first one is your chisel's probably not going to be long enough to get to the bottom, which is my case. The other is that you're going to chip out the bottom if you do. I would also lay out where your mortises are going to be on the bottom so that you can cut to that. Make sure that you reference from the same face that you referenced when you laid out the top. And if you like to not follow your own advice, like I do, you'll just lay out two lines instead of all four, like I said to earlier. The two lines being for the two edges that matter the most, because those aren't going to have a shoulder on my tenons. The other two edges, the long edges, are where the tenons are going to be on my legs. So for that reason, I didn't lay them out, because I have some adjustability in the tenons.
Alright, so at the end of this video, we're about here. In the next video, I'll be showing you guys how I cut the tenons for all the legs to fit them to the bench top, and mortises and the tenons for the stretchers, as well as cutting those to final dimension. I'll be showing you how I fit the vise, which go up here, to the bench itself, and making the vise jaws for that. And I'll be showing you the glue up for the whole bench, so it's going to be a pretty long video for the next one. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you in the next one. You can go, I don't have any sponsors.